Now we move towards Hobbes and Locke. Hobbes and Locke, they need to be done together because of the fact that how there is a lot of comparison which can be drawn. So it makes a lot of sense that we do Hobbes and Locke together. Okay, we'll do all the themes, and more questions have come from Hobbes and Locke than from Machiavelli over a period of time. Okay, so what are the different themes in Hobbes and Locke? We'll come to those themes. First, very quick revision of Hobbes and Locke. You can be asked a question on the state of nature of Hobbes and Locke. How for Hobbes the state of nature is poor, nasty, short, and brutish. However, for Locke, the state of nature is a state of peace, goodwill, and mutual assurance. So first of all, the state of nature for both the thinkers is different because both of them, they believe in a different conception of human nature. Human nature is considered to be different by both of them. Now, this state of nature is poor, nasty, short, and brutish. I'll give you some more keywords for this. It is a state of war of all against all. Then it is a state of, और क्या था? War of all against all. It is a state whereby arts, literature, commerce are not viable. It's a state whereby, which is a constant struggle for power, which will end with the death of man. So a highly pessimistic conception of state of nature. Why? Because it is based on a self-seeking, individualistic, egoistic man. The conception of human nature is pessimistic. Here it is a state of peace, goodwill, and mutual assurance, because the conception of human nature is that man is a moral, rational, and a self-interested being. So the conception of human nature varies, as a result of which the state of nature is different. This is fundamental to both the thinkers, because on this basis they are going to finally come up with their conception of state. Because of this aspect of state of nature, Hobbes ends up creating an absolute state, and because of this aspect of the state of nature, Locke ends up creating a minimal state. So the creation of absolute state, or the creation of Leviathan in Hobbes, is because of the fact that state of nature is a state of war of all against all, and there is anarchy, chaos, matsanyay in Thomas Hobbes' state of nature. Whereas for Locke, state of nature is a state of peace, goodwill, and mutual assurance, जहां पर ऐसा कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बट कुछ इनकन्वीनियंस थी, उन इनकन्वीनियंस को रिजॉल्व करने के लिए हमने क्या किया, हमने बना दी स्टेट, बट दैट स्टेट हैज टू बी अ मिनिमल स्टेट. ठीक है, तो पहले तो स्टार्टिंग यहां से करेंगे. नाउ Hobbes and Locke, they are social contract thinkers. As a part of their social contract, they have devised the state on the basis of consent. Okay, while obligation in Hobbes is on the basis of consent and fear, here it is only consent. There is no element of fear per se. This I'll discuss when I discuss obligation with you. Wait for it. Okay. So first of all, questions have been asked in UPSC whereby they have asked you to elaborate on the state of nature. As simple as that. They have asked explain this state of nature. They have asked explain this state of nature. So first of all, you need to know this. Okay. Now let's take the discussion forward. Now, after state of nature, for Hobbes and Locke comes the conception of state. Okay. Conception of state. For Hobbes, the idea is absolute state, which is also called as Leviathan. The name of the book is also Leviathan, and the state is also called as Leviathan. Okay. Locke, he says it's a minimal state. Now, stay with me. This is a result of a contract. The contract, when it is done, it creates a Leviathan. And in the contract, the terms of the contract suggest that people have no right to resist once the Leviathan has been formed, except one circumstance, which is the right to preservation of life. The contract is done so as to preserve life. Okay. Why? In state of nature, there is no security with respect to your life. So preserve the life as a part of the contract. Now, now you create a Leviathan, preserve life. Now, no right to resist except when preservation of, except when life is in danger, or except when Leviathan is not able to protect. That's it. Only in those circumstances, what you can do, you can revolt, but not otherwise. Now, in John Locke, what happens? The people, they come together and they create a civil society which enters into a fiduciary relationship with state. So even if the state does not exist in Locke, it will not lead to state of nature. It will lead to the creation of civil society if the state does not exist. But here what has happened is the contract is directly creating the state. So tomorrow, if state goes away, there will be state of nature, and nobody wants state of nature because life is not preserved there. So state will remain. Here, the state is just a fiduciary relationship, or the state is created as an agent which is going to take care of the trust of the people, and it is going to do some minimal functions. Okay. Even if the state does not exist, tomorrow there is going to be a civil society, and man can govern himself in the civil society. Why? Because he is driven by natural law. Okay. So we know this. Now let's take the discussion forward. If the state, first of all, people enter into a contract and create a civil society. Now civil society has created an agent. Now this agent has to take care of what? Largely three things: security of people, security of borders, then law and order, and finally enforcement of contracts. You have to take care of these. That's it. Further, only those rights which have been surrendered, they can be restricted by the state. Natural rights have not been surrendered, so natural rights, they continue to be retained by people, and natural rights will continue to be enjoyed by people. The state cannot take away natural rights. Okay, that is the basic idea of John Locke. We'll talk more about that later on. First, let's make a sense of minimal state and absolute state. Okay, then we'll go to the conception of law also separately. Now, they can ask you a question whereby they can say that, okay, different conceptions of state of nature have led to different conceptions of authority. You make a comment on that. This authority is absolute except one circumstance. But here, Locke is saying this authority is not absolute. Rather, it has to abide by the contract. And in the contract, we have written that natural rights are not getting transferred. So if the state transgresses into natural rights domain, we will revolt against the state. So here, if you see, Locke has provided for the conditions for revolt, and his conditions for revolt are extensive. Here condition for revolt, or you call it revolution, rather actually revolution is the right word. The conditions for revolution here are considerable, but conditions for revolution in case of Hobbes, they are limited to one, that when the Leviathan is not able to protect the life or preserve the life. Okay, now let's take the discussion forward. So we have done state of nature, we have done conception of authority, we have seen when the authority or when we can raise the voice against the authority also. Okay, fine. Now let's see the conception of law. Hobbes and Locke, conception of law. Okay, in the conception of law, Hobbes is saying law is the command of sovereign. One. Second, covenants without sword. And this was the question in your test also. Covenants without sword are nothing and are of no strength to secure a man at all. Covenants without sword. So the emphasis is on sword. Then, okay, here Locke, he is a proponent of natural law. He is a proponent of positive or state law. Okay, both conceptions are important for us. Now what is, so sorry, गिर गया, कोई बात नहीं, एक और है मेरे पास. Locke, he is a proponent of natural law, and he has also made a statement called no law, no liberty. From this, we'll try to understand their own conceptions of law. Now, very important for us to very quickly look at the various conceptions of law. When it comes to the conceptions of law, we have positive conception of law, we have natural law tradition, और दी इसको यहाँ नेचुरल या पॉजिटिव या स्टेट लॉ लिख लेते हैं, इसको लिख लेते हैं नेचुरल. ओके, and then religion can be a source of law, and then culture can also be a source of law, or customs are also a source of law. We are not at all interested in these two. We are only interested in these two. Okay, this we do in the topic on rights, and as such it is not relevant here. So Locke believes in the conception of natural law. Natural law is understood through reason. The reason why for John Locke this state of nature is a state of peace, goodwill, and mutual assurance is because here people are driven by reason. Okay, people are driven by reason, that is the reason. Or as per Locke, there is a natural law which exists. Because the natural law exists, natural law is telling the people that what is the right thing to do. They are reasonable, so that is why they are not killing each other. They are not restricting the liberty of others, and that is why the state of nature is a state of peace, goodwill, and mutual assurance. But Thomas Hobbes says this is nonsense. He says ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता. लोग तब तक बात नहीं मानेंगे जब तक डर नहीं पैदा होगा, और डर पैदा करने के लिए यू नीड स्टेट लॉ. रीजन से समझी हुई बात कि ये काम करना ठीक है, दूसरे को नहीं मारना चाहिए, तभी वो तुमको नहीं मारेगा. इन द स्टेट ऑफ नेचर, people are pursuing their own conceptions of life, and everybody wants to pursue their own conception of good life. And while they are pursuing their own conceptions of good life, they are driven by desires, and desire of one is going to interfere with the desire of other. And are you reasonable enough so as to understand that yes, your liberty is also going to end somewhere, so that others are not harmed, and others also need to understand that their liberty has to be somewhere restricted so that the others are not harmed? And is man reasonable enough to understand this? For Locke, yes, because natural law exists. For Hobbes, no. That is why he says जब natural law था तब देखो क्या situation थी. पुअर नास्टी शॉर्ट एंड ब्रूटिश था, वॉर ऑफ ऑल अगेंस्ट ऑल चल रही थी, उसके अकॉर्डिंग नहीं होगा, जॉन लॉक के अकॉर्डिंग होगा. सो दैट इज व्हाई व्हेन हॉब्स विल कम, हॉब्स विल से this is also, he calls this as articles of peace. Articles of peace means if abided by, peace will be there, but there is no guarantee of peace. What's Thomas Hobbes? This quote has to be used. Thomas Hobbes says natural law is like articles of peace. If you abide by it, there is peace, but there is no guarantee of peace. And Thomas Hobbes wants peace. Why? Because he is born in the time when there is crisis in England. So he is highly fearful. He is fearful. That is why he does not want that. Okay. Now let's take the discussion forward. So Thomas Hobbes will say, no need for natural law. Let's go for state law. And when he says the real law is the law made by the state, it is not the law which is understood by reason, he makes the statement, law is nothing but the command of the sovereign. So whatever the sovereign will say, that is what the law is. And this law will be able to protect you because this law has the power of enforcement. If there is no power of enforcement, then the security is not guaranteed or peace is not guaranteed. So in the same line, he makes this statement, covenants without swords are nothing but merely words, and they are of no strength to secure a man at all. पूरा बोल दिया मैंने. क्वेश्चन पूरे का नहीं आया था मुझे लगता है. लेट्स सी कौन सा क्वेश्चन डाला था.